Almost a quarter century after Aristophanes' Clouds was first performed, Socrates was charged with corrupting the youth and failing to recognize the traditional Greek gods. His trial was held just over 2,400 years ago in 399 BCE. Because the trial took place not long after the end of the Peloponnesian War, Athens' humiliating loss to Sparta was still on many people's minds. During wartime, it was understood that victory came from two sources: the protection of the gods and the unwavering loyalty of a city's young soldiers. So the charge of corrupting the youth and failing to recognize the city's gods was serious, and much like the charge of treason. At his trial, Socrates was charged by three men: Meletus, Anytus, and Lycon. In an Athenian court, there were no lawyers. The accusers and the accused spoke for themselves. So after hearing from his accusers, Socrates had to give a speech in his own defense. It is this speech that we are going to hear next. Following the speech, it will be your job as jurors to decide Socrates' guilt or innocence. After he completes the speech, you'll be asked to walk to the front of the theater to vote. Be sure to exercise your vote wisely. There's another thing. Athenian juries weren't quiet. If people thought a speaker was stretching or misrepresenting the truth, they'd often yell out. So if you hear others heckling, you're welcome to join in. We join the proceedings just as Socrates is being presented to the jury.
Well, men of Athens, I don't know whether you've been persuaded by my accusers, but I have to admit, they spoke pretty convincingly. So convincingly, they almost convinced me. But hardly a word of what they said was true. What amazed me most was when they said you had to be careful and not to let me trick you because I'm such a clever speaker. They should be ashamed of themselves. As soon as I open my mouth, it'll be obvious I'm not a clever speaker. Unless by a clever speaker, they mean someone who speaks the truth. If that's what they mean, then I have to admit I'm a much more clever speaker than they are. But I'm not like them. They tell you either nothing that's true or only partial truths. From me, what you'll get is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And my words won't be gussied up the way theirs are, with lots of verbs and nouns. My speech won't be filled with legalese. I'll just speak with whatever words come to mind. All I ask is that you listen to me. Don't be put off if you hear me talk the same way I do in the marketplace. You've all heard me there. That's how I am. I was born 70 years ago, and this is the first time I've been in a court of law. So the talk here is foreign to me.
Don't believe him.
Look, all I'm saying is that if a foreigner showed up here, you'd bear with him if he spoke the way he did in his hometown. So I'm just asking that, however I talk, whether it's plain or fancy, look to see if I'm telling the truth. Because the same thing is good for a speaker and a juror, the truth. People have been coming to you with accusations about me for a long time now. So it's probably best if I start by speaking against the old accusations first, and then against the new ones. I worry about my old accusers even more than Meletus and his friends. They got to you in your childhood, when you were young and impressionable. You remember Aristophanes' play, don't you? There's supposed to be this Socrates, a wise man, who thinks about things up in the sky and under the ground, and who doesn't believe in the gods, and he makes weak arguments appear to be strong. Members of the jury, the people who spread these rumors, they're my real accusers. And you know how rumors are. You never know who said what. There's no one to argue with. It's like fighting shadows. So I have two different kinds of accusers. Some accuse me now. Others have been accusing me for a long time. And you can see that I have to defend myself against the first ones first because you heard them first. Of course, I only have a short time to make my case, but I hope I'll succeed. That would be good for me and for you. Although, it would be better for me, of course. It's going to be difficult, and I don't want to lose sight of that. But one way or another, it'll be as the gods want it. My job is just to do what's right. So, let's start at the beginning. What are my accusers saying? Well, if you want to know the formal charges, you'll have to read the indictment. But my original accusers said that I look under the ground and up at the sky, and that I make weak words appear to be strong, or something like that. That's what you saw in the play by Aristophanes, as Socrates swings in from the clouds and says, "I can walk on air," and then she fools around with some other nonsense that I don't have a clue about. And doesn't she teach some poor boy some kind of foolishness? I don't know about you, but the whole thing left my head spinning. Although, I suppose the acting was pretty good. I don't say it's dishonorable to know things like that. Oops, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't want to give Miletus grounds for any new charges. Let me just say that I'm not into things like that. Most of you can serve as witnesses for me. If you've heard that I run a school, or that I've taught people for money, you know that's not true. Don't get me wrong. People who can teach the way Gorgias of Leontini, Prodicus of Chios, and Hippias of Elis can, they're great men. They can go anywhere they want, and wherever they go, they can convince young men who could be with anyone to leave the people they're with and be with them. And they can convince their parents to pay them for the privilege and be grateful for it too. I myself saw a man from Paris. He's wise this way. And there's this other man I know who pays him for his wisdom. In fact, he pays them more than all the other sophists put together. His name is Callias. He's the son of Hipponicus. Well, I went to him and I said, "Callias," he has 2 sons. "Callias, if your 2 sons were horses or bulls, we'd take them to someone who knew how to make them fine and good, as befits a bull or horse."
"We would."
"And we'd pay for this too. We'd take them to some kind of farmer or horseman."
"We're people, not animals."
"That's what I said. But your sons aren't animals," I said to him. "They're people. So who has the knowledge people need? Who knows about virtue and excellence so he can teach your sons? I take it that having 2 sons, you've thought about this. Is there anyone?" I asked him, "or not?" He looked me straight in the eye and said,
"Of course there's someone."
"Who?" I asked him. "Where does he come from and how much does he charge?"
"His name is Avenus. He's from Paros and charges 500 drachmas.
500 drachmas. Wow. If this Avenus can really teach people to do what's right, and if he charges so little for it, he's truly a great man. If I knew how to teach people that sort of thing, I'd be so proud there'd be no living with me. But I don't, O men of Athens." So why have these men charged me? Why do people think I put on airs and try to pretend I'm wise when I'm not? I'll tell you, but you have to listen carefully, because otherwise you may just think I'm fooling around, but I'm not. I admit that over the years I've acquired a reputation for having a certain kind of wisdom, and in one sense, perhaps I really am wise.
Here we go. He's a liar. A liar! We warn you.
Liar!
Liar!
We're liar! Quiet!
Please, men of Athens, don't get angry with me. I don't want you to think it's me who's making these claims. I have the word of a witness that I know you'll trust. As a witness to my wisdom, such as this, I offer the god of Delphi.
Blasphemy! Blasphemy!
You're a liar!
Blasphemy! Blasphemy! Let her speak.
You know Chaerephon. He's been my friend since childhood. He's been a friend to many of you, too. He left the city with you when you had to flee during the war, and came back when you came back. Well, you know how Chaerephon was. Whatever he did to the extreme. So, when he went to Delphi, he was brave enough to approach the oracle.
He did it! Never!
Look, don't get too excited. I'm just repeating what others will tell you. He approached the oracle and asked if anyone was wiser than me. The priestess answered that no one was wiser than Socrates. His brother can be a witness to this if you like, since Chaerephon's now dead.
Pretty convenient.
I'm not proud of this. All I want to do is show you where these attacks against me have come from. Why would the gods say what he said? Maybe he was speaking in riddles? I didn't have the faintest idea I was wise. So why would the oracle say I was wisest?
Why indeed?
I thought about it for a long time. I began to work very hard to find a way to understand it. I went to someone who had the reputation for being wise, and I thought, I'll test the prophecy and show the oracle, look, You said I was wisest, but here's someone wiser than me. Well, I examined the person I went to. I don't need to tell you his name, but it's enough to say that he was one of our politicians, a very wise man. And I talked with him. But it turned out he really wasn't very wise. So I tried to show him that, even though he thought he was wise, he wasn't. Well, he and the people around him began to get angry with me.
No, surely not.
Liar!
Liar!
Not!
Be quiet.
I think they even began to hate me. But I started to think maybe I am wiser than that man. There's no risk that either of us knows anything important, but he thinks he knows something and doesn't. So even though I don't know much, at least I don't think I do when I don't. Then I went to another politician who was said to be wiser still, and he seemed to me to be the same. And then he hated me too, and so did all of his friends. I have to make you understand how obligated I felt to make these inquiries. Because of what the God has said, I really felt I had to test people, especially those with a reputation for wisdom. So, after I'd examined the politicians, I went to the poets, who write songs and tragedies, and I asked them, why do you write what you do, hoping to learn something from them? Well, I'm ashamed to tell you what I discovered. Still, I have to say it. Almost anyone would have been able to explain their poetry better than they could. All I learned was that poetry was somehow in their nature. When they did it, it was as if they were out of their minds, like people who see gods and make prophecies. People like that don't know what they're talking about, even if they think they do. So I left the poets, realizing that I'd come out on top, just as I had with the politicians. Finally, I went to the craftsmen. I thought that from them at least I'd learn some good things, and I wasn't disappointed. They did show me things about their crafts, and in a sense they really were wise. But once again, the same thing that was true of the poets and the politicians was true of the craftsmen. Because they could produce technically fine work, each of them thought they knew other things too, big, important things, things that you really have to be wise to know. But they didn't. So I asked myself, on behalf of the oracle, would I be better off knowing what they know, but also thinking I was wise when I wasn't, or not? My answer was that I wouldn't be. But because of my questions, a lot of people began to fling accusations at me, and some people said I was wise even though I'm not. What I learned is that only the gods have real wisdom. There's very little human wisdom, and what there is isn't worth much. So, when the god said I was the wisest, he was just using my name as a kind of stand-in, saying that it's people like me, who don't claim to know much, who know the most, because they're not mistaken about what they do know and believe. Anyway, because of all the work I've done on behalf of the god, I haven't had any free time to spend on public affairs, or even on my own affairs. I've ended up being totally poor, but I've tried my best to do the god's bidding.
Don't believe him. He's a liar. We told you.
Oh, there's one other thing. It's true. Young men have sometimes followed me around, particularly young men with time on their hands. They like to hear people being taken down a peg, and they sometimes try to imitate me, just for fun.
He admits it. Do you hear him?
We do.
This isn't my fault. They find there's no shortage of people who think they know something when they really don't. Then people become angry with me and say I'm corrupting the young. If someone asks them how I do this, they haven't got a clue. But not wanting to seem stuck, they say I don't believe in gods, and that I make the weaker argument appear to be stronger.
Same.
It is shameful. The upshot is that Meletus and Anytus and Lycon have brought these charges against me. Meletus for the poets, who hate me, Anytus for the politicians, who hate me, and Lycon for the orators, who also hate me. So now I have to defend myself against them and their charges, so let's look at what they say. They say that I wrongfully corrupt the young, as if someone might rightfully corrupt them, and that I don't believe in the gods the city believes in, and that I make up new divine things. Something like that. The bottom line is they think I'm corrupting the young, when really it's Meletus. You think education's important, don't you?
Of course I do.
All right then, tell us, who can teach our young people the most?
I don't know what you mean.
Come on, you must have thought about this or you wouldn't have charged me. If I'm the one who's corrupting them, who's improving them? You see, he doesn't know. You should be ashamed of yourself. I don't think you've given a moment's thought to what makes a good education.
Of course I have. It's the laws that teach us what's right.
The laws. But that's not what I asked. I asked you, what person is capable of teaching our young people what's right?
These people, Socrates. This jury can.
Do you mean these people, Meletus, the ones who know how to educate our young?
That's right.
Is it all of them or only some of them?
Every one of them.
Wow, this is great news. And are there others too? What about the men and women who are here today but aren't members of the jury?
They all know what's right, too.
And what about everyone else?
Everyone in Athens knows how to educate the youth except you.
So it seems that every Athenian is able to educate our young people except me. I'm the only one who corrupts them. That's what you're saying.
For someone who's supposed to be smart, you finally understood the charge.
All right, then, Meletus. To hear you tell it, I must be a very, very, very bad woman. But tell me this. Do you think the same is true of animals? Is it true that almost everyone knows how to train a good horse, and that only one person can't? Or isn't it the other way around? Aren't there really only a few people who are able to train a horse properly? And if this is true of horses, isn't it even more true of people? You see, he hasn't given a moment's thought to what makes a good education.
Same.
Here's an easier question. Is it better to live among good people or bad? Go on. It's not a hard question. Would you rather live among people who don't know right from wrong, who steal from you and do other bad things, or not? Come on, Miss Know-It-All. The law says you have to answer.
It does?
So, would you prefer to live among bad people or not?
No, of course not.
So why do you think I'm any different? Why would I corrupt the youth knowing that I'd have to live with them? Doesn't make any sense. Am I so stupid that I don't know if I make people bad, I run the risk that they'll do bad things to me? I don't think you'll be able to convince the jury that I'm that stupid. And even if I was, I need to be educated, not punished.
Like there's a difference.
You also say, I don't believe in the city's gods, but in some newfangled divinities instead. Is that right?
That's right. New gods that don't even have names. And that's why the real gods have abandoned them.
But how can this be? Are you saying that I'm not like other men, that I don't think the sun and moon are gods?
That's right. He says the sun is a rock and the moon is dirt.
Hold your horses, Meletus. Who do you think is on trial here? Anaxagoras? Do you think so little of these jurors? Do you think they're illiterate? That's Anaxagoras' view. Any bookseller would sell you his book for a drachma or two if you want to check. So what are you trying to do? Make me into a joke? Are you saying I just put forward the weird ideas of others as if they were my own?
Who knows what you do?
Well, I don't. And now you say I don't believe in the gods at all?
That's right. Not at all.
And that I also believe in some new kind of divinities?
That's right. You don't believe in the real gods, only some made-up ones.
I can't believe what you're saying, Meletus. I don't even think you could believe it. It's as if you were trying to make a puzzle for us. Will Socrates, this wise guy, will he know that I'm having fun with him and contradicting myself, or will I fool him and everyone else too? You're contradicting your own indictment. It says, I don't believe in the gods. And now you say I do believe in them.
Are you really this stupid? Not in them, not in the real gods, only in some silly new ones.
But how could anyone believe in new gods without believing in the old ones? Everyone knows it's the old gods who give birth to new ones, or more precisely, the new divinities are the offspring of the old gods together with nymphs or especially attractive women. So how could anyone believe in the children of the gods and not in the gods? That would be as stupid as believing that horses and asses can have children, half asses, and then not believing in horses or asses.
Who knows what you believe?
All I'm saying is that if I believed in these new divinities of yours, then I'd have to believe in their parents too. So what are you trying to do? Trick us with your indictment? What a charlatan.
I might not be as tricky as you, but I'm not the one who taught Alcibiades and Critias and the other traitors during the war. We lost the war because the gods, the real gods, abandoned us. Young men don't just wake up one morning and decide to become traitors. There has to be a reason, and you're looking at him.
Men and women of Athens, you can't trust anything he says. I've told you, I never ran a school, and I never taught people for money. In fact, sometimes I think virtue can't even be taught.
Maybe not, but wickedness can.
You remember Alcibiades. He traded secrets with Sparta during the war. And after the war, when he was dead, and when the Spartans wanted to set up their puppet regime here in Athens, who did they turn to? Critias and the others. You remember. They were all his students.
This is nonsense. Anyone with even a smidgen of brains can see that you should just let me go. Now, one of you on the jury might say,
if there isn't anything shameful about what you've been doing, why are you in such danger? A good jury might actually believe some of these charges. They might even decide to put you to death. Doesn't that worry you?
during the war when we stayed at our posts in Potidaea and Amphipolis and Delium, none of us ran away just because we become afraid of death or some other trifle. Being afraid of death is nothing more than thinking you're wise when you're not, thinking you know something you don't. No one knows whether death is the end or just a new beginning, but people fear death as if they somehow knew it was the greatest of evils. If this isn't the stupidest thing a person could do, to think he knows something when he doesn't, then I don't know what is. If there's one way in which I'm different from other people, it's that I don't pretend to know what happens after you die. None of us should pretend to know things we don't. That's why I've spent so much time nagging you. It's as if Athens was a big, well-bred horse, so big it's dopey and needs a gadfly to pester it. It's been my job to nag you to do what's right. If I die, you won't find someone else to take my place.
Good, we've had enough.
So if you want my advice, you should just let me go.
Oh, please. Don't listen to him.
Enough.
We've heard enough.
Calm down. You know very well that if you kill me, and if I am what I say I am, then you'll be hurting yourself much more than you'll be hurting me. These men can't hurt me. The only thing that can hurt a man is damage to his character. A truly good man can never be harmed, and if that's right, you need me more than I need to live.
This is unbelievable.
Mark it down. I am one of God's gifts to the city.
Believable. Unbelievable.
It's hardly human, the way I've ignored my own needs, the way I've ignored my family, because I'm constantly worrying about your business, going to you privately as a mother or older sister might, and trying to convince you to pay attention to virtue. Maybe it seems strange that, on the one hand, I go around advising people privately about things, and I never get up in public to take part in the assembly. But it's a good thing I haven't been involved in politics. If I had been, I'd probably have been killed years ago.
Would have saved us the trouble.
But if I had been killed, I wouldn't have been of any use to you. Nobody can fight for justice and be involved in politics.
Unbelievable. Do you hear her?
Don't get angry with me. I have a couple of big proofs of this, the kind you like, deeds, not words. Listen to what happened to me. Then you'll know I haven't shied away from doing anything that's right, just because of a little danger. You know I never held public office, except that one time when I was on the council. It was when the 8 generals were being tried for dereliction of duty after the battle at Ergunizai. You remember. You wanted to condemn them all with one vote, rather than take a separate vote for each man. But trying them together was against the law. Everyone agrees about this now, but at the time I was the only one who stood up for the law. I wouldn't allow the vote to proceed, even though some of you said I should be charged with obstruction. You all went along with the mob, roaring like animals. But I followed the law. I risked being put in jail or even being killed.
I remember.
That was when the city was being run democratically. But when the tyrants took control, it was just the same. They called us before them. There were 5 of us. They ordered us to bring Leon of Salamis back to Athens so they could kill him. They ordered a lot of people to do a lot of things like that. They wanted to involve as many people in their illegal actions as they could to taint us all so no one would complain. But that time too I showed you, not in words, but in deeds. I showed you that death means nothing to me. The other 4 went off to Salamis and brought Leon back, but I just went home. If the tyrants hadn't fallen soon afterwards, I would have been executed.
It's true, I remember.
So, if I had been involved in politics, do you think I'd have survived long? Not likely, nor would any other man or woman. Not if they care about justice.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The common man, not the great kings and politicians who finds it easiest to stay out of trouble. No tragic poet has even had the audacity to end his play with the slaughter of the chorus. So why do young men enjoy wasting their time with me? You've already heard the answer. They like to hang around me because it's fun to see someone who thinks he's smart being taken down a peg. But if anyone's been corrupted as a result of this, don't you think he'd complain, or that his father or brothers would? Wouldn't they get up now and accuse me and demand that I get what I deserve? There are lots of them here. There's Crito, he's known me all my life, and he's the father of Critobulus, and there's Licinius the Sphedian, the father of Aeschines. Nicostratus there, the son of Theodotes, and the brother of Theodotus, and of course Theodotus has died, so he can't tell us what he thinks. But there's Idomantus, the son of Ariston, whose brother, Plato, is also here. And there are plenty of others too. Don't you think that among them, Meletus should be able to find at least one witness to back up what he said? I didn't think so. No. It's just the opposite. Everybody is ready to help me. Me, the one who's been charged with corrupting the young. Well, that's pretty much all I have to say. Some of you might think I should do as others do, and beg the jury with floods of tears, and bring forward my wife and children to create as much pity as I can, but I won't.
Why not? Doesn't our decision matter to you?
Why not? It's not because I don't have a family. As Homer says, I didn't spring from a rock or a tree. And it's not because I'm brave in the face of death, or out of any disrespect for you. It just wouldn't be right. Trials are meant to be places of reason and deliberation, not soap operas. Jurors don't dispense justice as charity or as a reward for good performance. You're about to make a judgment. You've sworn an oath to judge, not by what gives you pleasure, but in accordance with the truth and the law. So it's important that we respect justice and the gods. Throughout my life, I've always tried to do what's right. I've also never misled the young, and I believe in the gods even more than my accusers do. So the only thing I hope is that you and the gods will judge me in a way that's best for us all.
You are now required to cast your vote. Please rise. If you believe Socrates should be found guilty of corrupting the young, you're to select a black stone and place it in the bronze container. If you think he is not guilty, you're to select a white one. Remember, black means guilty, white means not guilty. The votes have been counted. Socrates has been found guilty of corrupting the young.
Yes! Please. I'm not upset about what's happened. It's not a big surprise. The amazing thing is how close the vote was. I thought I'd lose by far more than this. If only 30 votes had gone the other way, I'd have been acquitted. In fact, if you want my opinion, as far as Meletus is concerned, I think I have been acquitted. If Anytus and Lycon hadn't joined him in bringing the charges against me, he'd have to pay 1,000 drachma fine for making a frivolous charge.
Oh, please, you're guilty. You're guilty. Admit it.
Enough! Both sides have to propose penalties.
Death. The prosecution demands death. Or banishment. No, death.
What counter-proposal should I make? What punishment do I deserve?
Death!
Nothing!
Death!
Nothing!
Death!
Perhaps I should pay a fine. But why? Why would I pay for having tried to help you be your best? I know. Someone who helps you the way I do should get all her meals for free at City Hall. Don't you think I deserve this more than some guy who wins a horse race at the Olympics? He seems to make you happy, but I make you happy. And he doesn't need the food, but I do.
Not for long.
If it's a question of what I deserve, then my punishment should be that I get to eat all my meals for free.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
Make him be serious.
Maybe it sounds like I'm begging you for something I don't deserve. But that's not what I meant. It's just that I haven't done anything wrong. You don't believe this, but that's only because we've had so little time to talk about things. If the laws here were the same as elsewhere, and you allowed the court more than just one day to decide matters of life or death, I'd have convinced you. But since I haven't done anything wrong, I'd be doing myself an injustice if I said I deserve something bad when I don't. Should I be afraid of the punishment Miletus wants to give me? Someone who doesn't know whether death is good or bad? Should I choose instead something I know is bad? Should I give you some money to escape? As if paying a fine would make you change your mind about me? I suppose some of you might accept banishment as a punishment, but where would I go? What kind of life would I have at my age, going from place to place just to be chased out of one city after another? I can just see it. Wherever I went, the young people would flock around me so they could listen to what I had to say. If I made them go away, they'd convince their parents to kick me out of town, and if I didn't make them go away, the old people would kick me out anyway to protect their children. So you're stuck with me. Of course, some of you might prefer that I just go home and be quiet. I can imagine you asking me.
Socrates, if we make it a condition of your release, will you promise to stop going around nagging people? Will you promise to stop influencing young men with your strange ideas?
Unfortunately, this is something I just can't do. Refusing to examine what's right would mean abandoning everything that's important. I know you'll think I'm being ironic, but the greatest thing a man can do is test himself and others against the good. I mean it when I say the unexamined life is not worth living. So, we're back to the question of punishment. If I had some money, I wouldn't mind paying a fine, but I don't have much. If you want to know what I can pay, I can pay 1 piece of silver.
Please!
3,000 drachmas!
What?
He said 3,000 drachmas. We'll guarantee it.
Plato, who's sitting over there, and Crito and Critobulus and Apollodorus. They say I should put the fine at 3,000 drachmas. They're good for it, so all right. That's what I'll say my penalty should be. 3,000 drachmas.
The penalty is death.
No!
Yes!
No!
Well done!
No!
Please. There's nothing to get excited about. Although if you'd waited a little longer, you would have got the same result without all this trouble. I'm an old woman. I would have died soon anyway. If any of you want to stay a while, I do have a few more things to say. I don't want you to think that I regret the speech I gave or the way I gave it. I know some of you think that if I'd been a little more humble, I could have gone free. But the real problem is that I wasn't brazen enough to say what you wanted me to say. The only thing that would have made you happy was to hear me crying and carrying on, saying things that are beneath me. That's what you've seen others do. But a little danger shouldn't make us act like cowards. It's much more difficult praising the Athenians in Sparta than in Athens. Even now, I don't regret the speech I gave. I'd much rather die having given that speech than live any other way. Nobody should try to run from death at any cost. Not in court, not in war, not anywhere. It's obvious that even in battle, there are plenty of ways to escape death. You can drop your weapons and run. You can turn around and plead with whoever's chasing you. And there are other ways too, if you're courageous enough to do or say anything. No, my friends, it's not hard to escape death. It's much harder to escape wickedness. Wickedness runs faster than death. Since I'm old and slow, I've been caught by the slow one. But my accusers, being clever and sharp, have escaped the slow one, only to be caught by evil. So now, it's time for me to leave, since you decided that I need to pay the fine of death. But as long as they're busy, I want to say a few words to those of you who voted for my acquittal. Stay with me a while. nothing prevents us from swapping stories. And since we're close, I want to tell you something. My friend, something amazing has happened to me. Normally in the past, if I were going to do something that I wasn't supposed to, I'd receive a warning from one of the gods telling me not to do it. I'd hear a small voice warning me about these things that were wrong or dangerous. Now some people might think that what is happening to me is a bad thing. But from the moment I left home this morning, not once have I given any sign of opposing. Now some people might think that what's happening to me is a bad thing. But from the moment I left home this morning, not once have I been given a kind of sign opposing what I was about to do. Nothing. What do you as they're busy, I want to say a few words to those of you who voted for my acquittal. Stay with me a while. Nothing prevents us from swapping stories. And since we're close, I want to tell you something. My friends, something amazing has happened to me. Normally, in the past, if I were to do something that I wasn't supposed to, I'd receive a warning from one of the gods telling me not to do it. I'd hear a small voice warning me about things that were wrong or dangerous. Now, some people might think that what's happening to me is a bad thing. But from the moment I left home this morning, not once have I been given any kind of sign opposing what I was about to do. Nothing. What do you think this means? I'll tell you. People can never be harmed by doing what's right. Usually we think death is bad. Maybe it's not. Death is one of two things. Either someone who's dead doesn't feel anything, or it's lucking out and getting a fancy new apartment. Instead of living in one place, you get to live someplace new. If it's not feeling anything, like being asleep without dreaming, death would be a great pain. Death would be a great gain. If someone had to choose between one night where he slept without dreams or worries of any kind, and all the other days and nights of his life, no man, not even a great king, could say for certain which he'd prefer. So if death is like this, it may be a gain. The whole of time would seem like one night. On the other hand, if death is like being in a new place, and if it's true that those who've died are already there, then what could be better? If you arrived in Hades having escaped those who pretend to be jurors, and found where the real jurors, those who judge justly, Minos and Icus and Triptomelus, would there be anything wrong with leaving home? Imagine Orpheus and Hesiod and Homer all there together. How much wouldn't you give for that? I'd want to die many times if this were true. I'd see and meet the most interesting and famous people, and I'd get to pester the biggest names that ever lived. I'd pass my time figuring out who was wise, and who thought he was wise but wasn't. Wouldn't it be great to be able to pester the men who led the army at Troy, or Odysseus, or Sisyphus, or countless others one could mention, men and women alike? If I were with them, talking and examining them, I'd be extraordinarily happy. It would be like one long philosophy seminar, and they wouldn't be able to kill me for it either. You can look forward to death knowing this one thing. Bad things can't happen to good people. Not when they're alive, and not when they're dead. But I see it's time to go. Me to be put to death, and you to live. Only the gods know which of us is going to the better place.